The galaxy's joke. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had ruled from the shining halls of Zeorath Prime, a space station so large that even a war moon looked small beside it, and inside its golden chambers filled with the representatives of over 100 advanced species, there was one name they no longer bothered to speak: Earth, the old world, the quiet planet, the forgotten myth. The council chamber buzzed with voices as species from across the galaxy debated the recent aggression by the Voric swarm, a violent empire that had already consumed 3 systems in less than a cycle. And while many were worried, one thing they all agreed on was this: the humans were long gone, if they ever mattered at all. High Lord Jeshtar of the Zalak Dominion, with his long violet horns and sharp glowing teeth, laughed loudly as he addressed the chamber, his voice echoing across the walls. "Let us not pretend that Earth will help us. That world is a ghost, a tale we tell our hatchlings to teach them about chaos and fire." Many others laughed with him, slamming their palms or tentacles or claws on their floating podiums, while some younger delegates, especially from the newer star nations like the Korean or the Eshla, exchanged confused glances, unsure why Earth was such a joke, and yet spoken of in the old records with such quiet fear. Ambassador Velra of the gentle Silian race, who was over 600 years old and had lived through the last human war, spoke calmly from her crystal platform. "I was a child when I saw Earth's ships pass through the unseen rift. They never spoke. They never explained. They just passed, and every enemy that followed them vanished." But her words were met with even more laughter, and Councillor Dresh of the Makari, mechanical beings made of silver and steam, clicked his voice through a voice box. "Stories, myths, and smoke. You speak like an old woman remembering shadows. Earth is silent now. Their silence means surrender." In the back of the chamber, seated quietly and almost forgotten, was an old alien named Tornash, from a minor race called the Nolari, who rarely spoke and whose people kept to the edge of known space, close to what was once called human territory. With slow movement he stood, his skin wrinkled like dried stone, and his voice came like a whisper of wind through dead trees. "You think silence means defeat, but I lived near the ruins of Outpost X-17, where no plants grow and no machines work, not because of war, but because Earth left something behind, something no scanner can read. And I tell you now, when Earth is silent, it is not dead. It is waiting." The chamber grew a little quiet, just for a moment, as the old words hung in the air like a cloud ready to burst. But then Jeshtar rolled his eyes and laughed again, louder this time, saying, "Let them wait. The galaxy has moved on." The debate resumed, shifting toward war strategies and defense fleets, and somewhere in the long talk, Earth was once again forgotten, their silence once more taken as proof of absence. But far away, beyond the edges of mapped stars, beyond the places even the boldest traders refused to go, there was motion. 1,000 lights blinked to life on the black surface of a fleet, hidden inside a nebula so dense that even time seemed to bend. These were not ordinary ships. They did not broadcast signals. They did not request landing rights. They simply moved. Inside the command ship, shaped like a blade stretching miles in length, a human captain stared at a star map updated with Galactic Council movements. Her face was calm, carved with lines from battles no one else remembered, and her voice was soft when she spoke. "Phase 1 complete. Begin approach." Without noise, without announcement, the fleet turned and jumped through space in silent waves. Back at the council, the debates had nearly ended, and a vote was being cast on whether to surrender one of their border systems to the Voric in exchange for peace, when a single ping echoed across all systems, cutting through shields, codes, and silence. It was a message. Plain. Direct. From the edge of space. "This is Earth Command. You called. We arrived." For one long breath, no one moved. No one spoke. Every species, every representative, turned toward their console, hoping it was a mistake, hoping it was a prank, hoping anything but the truth. Then the long-range scans lit up. Ships, thousands of them, surrounding the outer rim, blocking the Vorak, flying with no known identification, yet marked by one symbol, the Earth insignia of the old fleets. And somewhere, far below the council hall, old Ambassador Velra closed her eyes and whispered, "They are not gone. They were waiting for us to forget. And now, we will remember." When the message from Earth Command reached the Galactic Council, silence filled the hall like thick smoke choking every voice, and for the first time in centuries, even the loudest leaders could not find words, because that name, Earth, was not supposed to come back, not in real time, not on official channels, and definitely not with a fleet. At first, many of the species refused to believe it. Some claimed it was a trick by the Vorak swarm, a distraction to confuse the council while the real attack happened somewhere else. Others believed it was an old signal, bouncing through space after centuries of silence, finally arriving late like an echo of a forgotten scream. But when the orbital telescopes and deep scanners confirmed the impossible size and shape of the approaching ships, ships with no known engines, no life signals that could be read, and no data that made sense, panic started to grow in small waves across the chamber. Jeshtar of the Zalak Dominion stared at the data screen, his violet horns pulsing with heat as he leaned forward and growled, "This is a trick. The humans are gone. These are ghosts." But Ambassador Velra of the Cillians looked up slowly, her old eyes shining with tears, and whispered, "No, they are not ghosts. They are shadows coming home." The fleets had not yet fired a single weapon. They had simply appeared, thousands of ships shaped like nothing ever seen before, black as the deepest parts of space, moving with no heat trails, with no radio noise, with no energy pulses, like they were floating through space without the laws of physics applying to them. Across the galaxy, stations went into lockdown, trade routes froze, and civilian broadcasts filled with fear and theories. Who were they? Were they really human? Why now? In a deep mining outpost near the edge of Sector 10, a small crew of alien workers watched a single ship pass above their asteroid field. The ship did not stop. It did not scan them. It just moved like a giant knife sliding through the stars. One of the workers, a young Korean female named Neela, whispered, "If that's human, then the stories weren't lies." But back at the council, some still refused to believe. High Lord Dresh of the Makari slammed his mechanical fist on his podium, his voice sharp. "They are trying to scare us. They come now when we are weak. Just like the legends warned, we must respond with force." Tornash, the old Nolari who had spoken before, stood again. "Force against what? You don't even understand what you're looking at. You mock legends, but now those legends fly in formation." A priority alert cut across the chamber. Multiple Vorak fleets had just been destroyed, but not by the Council, by the unidentified Earth-marked Armea. The footage came in next. Dozens of Vorak warcruisers floating dead in space, split open like fruit. Their core systems melted from the inside without any weapon discharge visible. The kill was clean, surgical, silent. The silence in the chamber grew heavier. Ambassador Velra stepped forward again. "We ignored the warnings. We buried history. But Earth didn't die. They evolved where no one could see." Across the galaxy, strange signals began arriving. Old war beacons lighting up after centuries, deep vaults unlocking by themselves, lost satellites activating and sending out one repeated message: "Earth remembers." Panic turned into fear. The Council called an emergency session, this time not for debating, but for survival. They had laughed at the idea of human return. They had erased their own war records out of arrogance. They had told their children stories of the ancient rage that had once crossed the stars. And now that rage had returned, calm and patient, wrapped in black steel. Still, the humans had not spoken again. No second message, no threat, No demand, just presence. Ships hovering around the edge of galactic space like watchers, as if they were waiting for something no one else understood. Back in her personal quarters, Velra watched the old file from her childhood again, a blurry video of a human soldier walking through smoke and fire, holding a flag marked with stars, not speaking, just walking, while everything behind him burned. She remembered her father saying, "Never wake the planet that burns its own sky." She had forgotten those words. Now the galaxy remembered, and deep inside one of the human ships, a single voice spoke into a silent room, staring at a map full of enemy zones, flashing red. "We gave them peace. They chose to forget." Another voice replied softly, "So now we return. Not for war. For truth." As the lights dimmed in the chamber and the human fleet moved one sector closer to the galactic core, a feeling spread across the galaxy, deeper than fear. Regret. Because when the sky filled with Earth's ships, it was not just power the galaxy saw. It was the cost of mocking something that never needed to speak to be remembered. The black ships of Earth did not speak. They did not broadcast any message. They did not ask questions or give warnings. They simply moved forward, calm, quiet, and deadly. Inside the council, leaders from every corner of the galaxy sat frozen in their seats. The air was cold, even though the room's temperature never changed. Fear had changed the air, not the machines. And fear was something these leaders had not felt for centuries. Jeshtar, who once laughed at the stories of human strength, now stared at the moving data on his screen. Each red mark was a destroyed fleet. Each green mark was another Earth ship entering a new sector. The pattern was clear. They were not attacking blindly. They were cleaning up. They were moving like surgeons across a battlefield, destroying only military targets, avoiding civilians, avoiding chaos. But that silence was louder than any war cry. Back on planet Zakara, deep in the archives, a group of scholars uncovered something old. An ancient recording from the last war with Earth. The video was damaged, shaky, but it showed a human commander standing before a room full of alien leaders, saying one single line before the feed ended in fire. "If you erase us from your history, we will return in your nightmares." For years, the galaxy thought those words were just drama, just myth. But now, those nightmares were real. And they were here. Across the stars, emergency meetings were called. Defense systems were activated. Millions of citizens ran to bunkers, thinking the end was coming. But the humans still didn't attack civilian worlds. They just waited in orbit, silent, as if watching, as if remembering. In the dark space near the ruined Vorik stronghold, a small scout ship from the Tyrant Empire sent a message to one of the Earth vessels. The message was simple: "Why are you here?" For 3 long minutes, there was no reply. Then the screen turned white, and only one sentence came through. "We are here because you forgot who we were." That same message repeated on every channel across the galaxy. It played in stations, on news screens, on military ships, on hidden pirate radios, even inside old tech that had not worked for decades. No one could stop it. It was like Earth was not sending a message, but pulling something from the past and forcing the galaxy to see it again. Tornash, the old Nolari who once warned the council, walked to the main floor. His steps were slow, but steady, and when he spoke, his voice was filled with deep sadness. "They warned us. The legends, the records, the stories of Earth's last war, they were not lies. We erased them because we wanted to believe we had won. But we didn't win. We just survived." In a secret base under the Cyrax moon, a rebel leader named Vikal watched the human ships and whispered to his team, "They didn't come for war. They came for judgment." The humans were not claiming territory. They were not installing control towers. They didn't even demand surrender. They simply appeared and destroyed every weapon pointed at their path. One by one. Clean. Fast. Terrifying. Back on the Council homeworld, panic spread. Some species wanted to beg for peace. Others wanted to hide. Some still believed it was not real. But one thing was clear now to everyone. The humans had not disappeared. They had waited for the moment when the galaxy would forget just enough to let them return without resistance. Inside the lead Earth warship, larger than any ship ever built by the Council, a human admiral looked at the holographic map. The ships were positioned in every major zone. The core systems were the last step. He turned to his officers and said in a calm voice, "Do not fire unless fired upon. Show them that we are not conquerors. We are memory." Another officer added, "They erased our name from the stars. Let's write it again, in silence." On the ground, in dozens of cities, children looked up and saw the human ships floating above the clouds like metal mountains. Some cried, some pointed, some simply stared. And slowly, the older ones realized these were not ships of destruction. They were ships of warning. And the warning was clear. Never forget Earth again. Back in the Council chamber, Velora stood again. Her voice shook as she spoke. "We have one choice now. Acknowledge Earth or face their silence forever." The screen above her flashed again. It showed old footage of humans helping other species, building peace, creating science, saving lives. Then it showed the moment the Council betrayed Earth, declaring them dangerous, erasing their name, burning their flags. The message at the bottom of the screen read, "We remember everything." And then, silence. The feed ended. But that silence was not peace. It was the sound of truth returning. And the galaxy, finally, listened. For weeks, the skies across the galaxy have been filled with the massive dark warships of Earth, silent and still like mountains in orbit, watching everything but saying nothing, doing nothing unless someone dared to strike first. And then their answer was fire. No message came from Earth. No demands. No speeches. Just presence. Heavy, quiet, powerful presence. And then, finally, the silence broke. On the 21st day after the human armada returned to the known galaxy, a signal was sent, not through the official Council communication lines, not through military channels, but through the oldest, most forgotten frequencies, the kind that had not been used since the days when humans were still part of the galactic map. The signal was short, but it was clear. "We remember what you did. We do not forgive, but we are willing to speak." The message repeated, once every hour, across all systems where human ships hovered above. Inside the Council chamber, panic turned into confusion. Many were hoping Earth would just leave, that maybe they had come for revenge, and then changed their minds. But now, they wanted to speak. But no one knew what to say. No one knew who should answer. The Council voted in chaos, yelling, blaming each other, while outside their windows, the shadow of the Earth flagship covered the sky like an eclipse. Finally, the oldest voice in the room spoke. Tornash, the one who had once warned the galaxy not to forget Earth, stood tall. "If you are all afraid to answer, then I will speak for us all," he said, his eyes cold, yet calm. Using an old translator system, one used during the last alliance with humans, Tornash sent a single line of response to the Earth fleet. "Then speak, children of the forgotten planet. We are listening." The reply did not come through video. No face appeared. No human showed their eyes. Only a voice came, deep and human. Not angry, not loud, just firm, like someone reading from memory, not emotion. "You built a galaxy by erasing our name. You taught generations to laugh at our legends. You called us myth. You called us extinct. But we are not gone. We simply waited, because we knew truth always returns." Tornash answered with slow words, careful, unsure. "What do you want now?" There was silence again. Then the human voice spoke once more. "Not your planets, not your riches, not even your surrender. We want something you forgot how to give. Tor Nash frowned. What is it? Respect. That one word echoed across the chamber, across 1,000 ships, across 1,000,000 minds. Respect. Not revenge. Not conquest. Just recognition. But even that small request felt heavy now, because the galaxy had spent hundreds of years pretending Earth never existed, turning their history into comedy, their suffering into ghost stories. Tor Nash's hands trembled. And if we give you that, will you leave? The human voice replied coldly. We are not visitors. This galaxy was ours too. We bled in its wars. We built in its peace. We earned our place. We will not leave what is ours. In dozens of star systems, humans finally began to move, not with weapons, but with engineers, medics, scientists. On broken stations long abandoned, Earth's people began repairs. On sick colonies no one helped for years, Earth's medics landed with supplies. They did not ask for thanks. They did not wave flags. They did not even wear uniforms. They just worked. Quietly. Efficiently. Like they had been doing this forever. And in the far-off corners of the galaxy, where people thought no one was watching, they saw it and whispered among themselves. Maybe the legends were true. Maybe humans were always this way. On the planet Ultra 9, a group of young alien students stood under the shadow of an Earth ship. One of them asked, why did they wait so long? The elder beside him answered, because sometimes silence is louder than war. Back in the council, a decision was made. A message was sent. To the humans of Earth, we acknowledge your return. We recognize your past, and we offer the start of peace, if you accept it. There was a long pause. No reply. Not for minutes. Not for hours. But then, across the stars, a simple message appeared again. Words mean nothing without memory. Remember us first. Then we talk of peace. And then the skies remained filled with their ships, present, watching, waiting. As the days passed, and the skies remained full of human warships, something strange began to happen across the galaxy. Stories, once told as jokes or forgotten myths, started to return, not in mockery, but in memory. Old records that had been buried deep in data vaults began to surface. Small pieces of history, dusty names, lost events, they all pointed to one undeniable truth. Earth had been there from the beginning. Not just present, but powerful, helpful, brave. Children in alien schools asked their teachers, is it true that humans once saved 1,000 ships during the Ion Storm Wars? The teachers, who had once laughed at such questions, now stayed quiet. On trade stations, where human goods were once banned, people started to ask for Earth technology, Earth books, Earth food. The market responded. Slowly, signs changed from no humans allowed to welcome Earth traders. But not everything was peaceful. There were still powerful empires, proud and arrogant, who refused to accept the truth. One such leader, the Emperor of the Varnek Empire, called humans a forgotten race trying to rise through pity. He ordered his fleet to attack a human outpost near the outer rim. The attack lasted 7 minutes. What returned from the battlefield was not just broken ships, but a message carved into the hull of the Emperor's personal flagship, burned deep into the metal. We were never gone. You simply looked away. The Emperor resigned that same day. In the council hall, the members held an emergency meeting, not in fear, but in realization. It was clear now that Earth had not come to destroy, but to remind. Not to conquer, but to return. Tor Nash stood once more, facing the screen where the human voice had last spoken. What must we do now? He asked softly. The voice answered, not cold this time, but calm, even tired. You erased our name, not with war, but with silence. That silence hurt more than weapons ever could. If you wish for peace, then speak our name again, not as a warning, but as truth. And so, for the first time in 300 years, the Galactic Council passed a law. Earth is not forgotten. Earth is not a myth. Earth is a founding world. Its name will be placed in every record, every school, every system where truth matters. The galaxy watched as statues were raised, not to gods, but to humans who once stood with others. A huge memorial was built near the galactic core, a ring of ships, broken and whole, from every species, with a flame in the center that would never die. On its base, a line was written: "To those who vanished, and those who returned, your name could not be erased." In deep space, the human fleet finally moved. Not to attack, not to retreat, but to explore. Ships left one by one, vanishing into the stars, just as quietly as they had arrived. But their message remained. On one peaceful moon, a young alien boy stood looking at the sky with his grandfather. He asked, "Will the humans come back?" The old man smiled. "They never really left. They're just waiting for the rest of us to grow up." And on the bridge of the Earth flagship, Admiral Sarin looked at the map of the galaxy, not as an enemy territory, but as a home once lost and now remembered. He spoke to his crew, who stood silent, proud, and ready. "We came not to fight, but to be seen. We were legends, then ghosts. Now, we are memory, and memory never dies." The ship turned toward the stars. Engines lit. One by one, the warships followed. And though they left no sound, the galaxy listened, because finally they remembered the name that could not be erased: Earth.